All right, so the next topic in most college algebra and most algebra classes next kind of big topic that you cover is this idea of slope, right? Slope is the rate of change, right? Rate of change from one point to the next, right? And then there's two ways to find slope, both algebraically and graphically, and we're going to kind of go over both of those today. And you might have questions in your homework that have you do both, right? So slope, in order to find rate of change between 2 points or on a graph, is you need 2 points, right? So you have what's called x1, y1, and then you have x2, y2. Basically, these are coordinates. You have an x coordinate of your first point and a y coordinate of your first point, and then you have an x coordinate of your second point and y coordinate of your second point. They're just labels. So see these numbers at the bottom? They're just labels. They're not exponents. They're not coefficients that you multiply or do anything with that. It's just a label, right? So your equation, you might have seen this before, is denoted by y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and that equals m, and you'll see what I mean by why it equals m here in the next video when we start talking about slope-intercept form, right? But for today, all you're doing is you're finding slope. You have this formula and you have the graph. So here's how you do it graphically, right? So we'll kind of explode into this graph a little bit. We have this graph of this line. And you have these two dots, which are 2 points, right? And you have to, when you do this, especially in college algebra, they like to do this a lot. They like to change the scale. In this graph, it's every box that you go by is by ones. Sometimes they might like to go by twos or by fives, right? So just be very mindful of what your scale is. Now, what I tell my students that I teach is this is the triangle thingy that you do. Basically, you take the lower point, you start at the lower point, and you draw straight up. So I'm going to draw a line straight up, and then straight over. And so it's the triangle stair-steppy thingy. And if you wanted to go again, you can keep going and you go up. So now we had the equation. I gave the equation for slope, right? Slope is also your rise over your run, meaning how much do you go up over how much do you go over, right? So rise, and once you do the triangle thing, you just count. So you go up 1, 2, 3. So this is up 3, and then you go over to 1, 2, right? So your slope for this picture would be 3 over 2. Now when you do it graphically, you do need to remember kind of some general ideas. When the line is going up, just like you read a book from left to right, you read graphs from left to right. And so when your graph, so say this is your XY graph, if the graph of your line, let me change the color here, say my blue line is my graph, right? This would be known as what's called positive slope. So positive slope, right? So my answer would be positive. And then if you have something that goes like this, let's change this back to blue. Let's change this to blue, okay? If your line's going down of some sort, from left to right, my line's going down, this would be considered negative slope, okay? And then there's two other ones. One's a vertical line, which would be undefined, and then a horizontal line, which would be 0. But the reason I show you these is because once you find your slope, you need to know, okay, do I need to add a positive or a negative number? Or not a number, positive or negative sign, right? In this case, the red line it matches my positive slope, so I can keep positive 3 over 2 as my answer. Now, if the line was going down from left to right, then I would just add a negative in the front, right? Now, algebraically, this takes, graphically, there's a lot to kind of remember. You kind of have to remember some pictures and where the line's going, what does it match, and do I add a negative sign, yes or no? Algebraically, as long as you do the math right, you'll get the right answer every time, right? So this is my x1 and this is my y1. This is my x2, and this is my y2 of my first and second point, right? And let's rewrite that formula, right? So we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? That's my equation for slope. So I take 10. Now that I have that equation, all you do is you just take these numbers and plug it in. So you have 10 minus 5 over 8 minus negative 2, okay? Now do the top and bottom operations separately. So 10 minus 5 is 5, right? And then 8 minus negative 2. Now, if negatives aren't your friend, please use a calculator, right? It's better to get the answer right than to, get something wrong. So I'd much rather use a calculator. I understand it's simple math, but, it's easy because there is negatives, right? Now, 8 minus a negative, so that means you plus, right? So 8 plus 2 is 10, and then 5 divided by 10. A lot of my teachers, what they'll do is they'll have you what's called simplify, right? So 5 over 10 reduces to 1/2. So all I did was I divided both top and bottom by the greatest common factor, which would be 5. And so you divide both top and bottom by that, and you get your simplified fraction, okay? Now, we come to another one. It kind of brings up kind of a special case, right? So we go x1, y1, x2, y2. So if we do plug those back into our formula as above, you have 4 minus 4 over 10 minus 2. So if you go 4 minus 4, you get 0. 10 minus 2 is 8. Now 0 divided by 8 is 0, okay? This would be what's considered a horizontal line, right? A slope of 0, okay? 0 on the top is okay. It's when you have 0 on the bottom, which is really, really bad, which we'll probably see here in a second. So setting this last one up, you have x1, y1, x2, y2. So you go 9 minus 3 over negative 8 minus negative 8. Okay, now 9 minus 3 is 6. Negative 8 plus negative 8 plus 8 is 0. When you get this is, if you take this in the calculator, you'll get an error, right? This is what's known as undefined slope, okay? This equation, or this line, the graph of this line is a vertical line, okay? And that's for later videos and stuff, but when you get this, you don't write 6 over 0. This is your answer, undefined. But if you take 0 divided by 8 in the calculator, you'll get 0, okay? So that's how you find slope. That's kind of a quick and dirty kind of rundown. Hopefully this helped. If you have any questions, please leave comments below. Or email me in the description. I'd love to help. Thanks.